So it's time to discuss the starter's location and how to unlock them in the Indigo Disc. So let's get into it. So first off, to unlock them, you are going to need 3000 BP. Come to this computer and you're going to see that you are going to have to get roughly 12,000 BP total to do this. So let's go ahead and jump into what stars are in what location. So starting off in the savannah, we can find Charmander. And honestly, he's not that hard. You can find him straight out of the gate. I found mine and quite a few of them right off of spawn when you do spawn into the terrarium. Keep in mind, he is normally orange and his shiny becomes a nice yellow. So he is kind of noticeable. And then we do have Finnegan as the other fire type in the savannah. And you can go ahead and find that towards the left side, depending on how you look at it. It's right near the canyon biome over on the edge. Its shiny goes to a nice gray, so watch out for that one. It does spawn in the savannah, and those are the only two fire types. For the grass types, we do have Rowlet. Rowlet does go ahead and spawn towards that Finnegan spawn. They do seem to fight over spawns between the grass and fire, but if you are wanting to have one a little bit easier, go ahead, pop an encounter power sandwich. And its shiny does go to a mint green, so you can easily spot that one when you do go ahead and find the shiny. Now Snivy will be spawning towards the coastal side biome. Near that side along the edge, you can be found in groups very, very easily. It does become a more vibrant green, more of a teal color, depending on how you look at it for the shiny. So those are the two grass types. Then we do have Sobble, which is going to be spawning essentially right at that big pond area. He is found in water. A lot of the water types do go ahead and be found in water in this. So Sobble will be in there, and he does go to a pink. His fin does turn pink if you are looking for the shiny of that one. Totodile is going to be spawning over by that Snivy spawn towards the coastal biome, and he will be in that water over there. And his shiny goes from a blue to a nice teal with his fins on his back, however you want to point it. It does go from red to blue. Look out for that one. That is going to be a great shiny, and I love Totodile. Next up is going to be the Canyon biome, and we can start off with Tepig. Tepig goes into Embor. He's going to be spawning right off the bat whenever you do come from the Savannah area. You can go ahead and easily find him. He is honestly everywhere, so don't have to worry about that. And his shiny does go from a normal orange to a yellowish gold. It's a very obvious shiny. You won't have trouble missing this one. Then we do have Litten, which is going to be spawning up in the rocky area. I have found the best spawn to be over by where the Cleaver spawns. He does mainly spawn up in the mountains. That's kind of where I found him. But his shiny does go from a black to a white. Pretty obvious shiny. You can't miss this one. Don't really worry about it. Next up is the grass types, and it's going to be Turtwig. Turtwig can honestly be found everywhere, and his shiny ends up making a more vibrant color. He just kind of gets a brighter green. Very obvious, like it's going to be a very bright shiny, so you will definitely know this one. Next up is Trico. I have honestly found him spawning very well up where the Cranidos and Shieldon spawn. If you go to that part of the canyon biome, you will find tons of them. He's honestly the only starter that spawns, and he spawns in groups, so very easy to find there. He does go to a teal, and his tail goes red. It's an amazing shiny starter, so definitely don't overlook that one. Try and get that one. You can honestly isolate that spawn up there with a grass power sandwich. Next up is the only water type that's going to be spawning here, and it's going to be Squirtle. Squirtle spawns in the water. Not that hard to find, and we all know what Squirtle's shiny is. His shell becomes green, and he becomes a different shade of blue. Just look for that green shell. He is really small, so if you are in the water, you could kind of miss him. But if you are looking for him, you won't be able to miss it. Next up is the polar biome. And the polar biome actually has some of the hardest to find Pokemon. So first off, we will be going with the Piplup. Piplup is everywhere in that biome. Like honestly, just walking around, you can easily run into him. And he does become a brighter color for his shiny, becoming a brighter shade of blue, which is honestly a really good shiny going in that Empoleon. And then Oshawott is going to be the other super common Pokemon in this region. The water types very much take over this area for these spawns, but it goes into a nice blue, different shade of blue for its shiny. Its nose does change colors, and the shell on its belly changes colors. So if you are looking for that shiny, I highly recommend looking for the pinpoints of the nose and the shell on its belly. Then we do have Chespin as the only grass type spawning here. And it's actually going to be easiest in the cave. There's this big cave that you can see that we go into. You can fly in there and you can find Chespin. That's where I have found him. Next up, we are going to be going with the Chimchar. Chimchar can be found in quite a few places up on the mountain. Not that bad to find. If you actually hug the backside of the map along the side by the canyon, there's going to be a little crevice there. You can easily find bunches of them. I found lots of family spawns for him. And his shiny goes from an orange to a bright magenta color. It's actually a very good shiny starter. So look out for that one. That one is actually a very common fire type in the ice biome. Scorbunny will be the next common starter in the area, being up on that same mountain that Chimchar can spawn, but towards the front end, towards the center of the terrarium. You can find him running around up on the mountain, no problem. And his shiny is going to be a little bit harder to notice. If you do end up looking at his nose does change color. His shiny becomes way more obvious in his later evolutions. Next up, we're going to go with Torchic. Torchic is going to be in this one particular spot on the map. If you fly into this cave, it's the only place it can spawn. Other things can take over the spawn, but if you do have a fire type encounter sandwich going, he is going to be the only thing to spawn in here. So that's going to be a great way to isolate, hunt him. Just getting a bunch of Torchics to spawn. If you were trying to get that shiny, go ahead and have a fire type sandwich, and that's going to be an easy way to get him to pop up. His shiny actually flops color, so he's normally an orange with yellow or orangey feathers. His shiny goes from a yellow, his orange becomes a yellow, and his feathers become orange. So you're going to be easily able to see it. Next up is Cyndaquil. Cyndaquil is also in a cave. So again, you can go with that fire type sandwich, run in and out. Make sure you knock out that Duraludon though. It's going to be a fixed encounter. Make sure you knock that out and you can easily isolate him in there without having to worry about that. Plus, it gives you an extra spawn. But that shiny is going to be going from a blue to a brown. But last but not least, we will be going into the coastal area, which if you can kind of figure, we're going to be only getting our water and grass types if you've been keeping track of what Pokemon are where. But starting off, Poplio is going to be the common spawn for the water in this biome. If you're coming from the savannah, go ahead, look towards the ocean, and on the beach, you'll easily find him. And if you are looking for that shiny, you're going to be looking for that ring around his neck. His collar does change colors. It goes from a blue to a pink. Not too bad of a shiny there, and it gives you something to go ahead and look for. Next up is Mudkip. Mudkip can be found in the cave system that's in this biome. If you fly all the way up to the top, and if you have done it already, you might actually have a fly point up there. You can go right into this cave system. Go ahead and find him. He does spawn here very often. And his shiny does go from a blue to a pink. Very obvious one. If you do pop a water sandwich in here, you can easily isolate him. Next up is Froakie. Froakie is the last water starter that we need to talk about. And he does spawn towards the polar area of this biome. I have found mine in the water. So a little bit harder to find. I found him like tucked up on the edge, and he's really small. So depending on if you can see him or not, he can be a harder one, but he does spawn in that area. That's where I found mine. But his shiny does go from a blue to more of a washed out blue because his first stage is very, very bad. It just goes washed out. But his final stage in the Greninja goes from a blue to a black. Probably one of the best shinies in the game. Chikorita is here spawning in the grassy area. Honestly, if you go to that back island towards the wall, he's going to be everywhere. You can find him very easily over by that coastal plaza area in between that island. Very common. Go ahead and find him. And one thing to keep note is for the shiny, the leaf on his head does go from green to a brown, a more autumn color variant for him. You can definitely tell by that color variant if you do have the normal one or if you do have the shiny. So next up is Grookey. If you're coming from the savannah and going into the coastal biome, he is going to be on that beach. Very common. That's an easy way to find him. He will be in the exact same spot you can find Poplio, but his shiny is going to be going from a normal green to a more washed out green. But if you do find him on the beach, he will stand out very easily. So ending it on Bulbasaur, a Gen 1 Pokemon. That cave system that we did spawn into, if you are up there in the grass area, you can easily find your Bulbasaur. He does kind of take over that spawn section. Chikorita doesn't really spawn there that often. It's more Bulbasaur, but you will need to keep in mind that Bulbasaur does kind of blend in with the bushes. So you can actually lose him very easily and just simply move by him without knowing. But his shiny does go from a normal green that we all know and love to a more vibrant green. And that bulb on his back is actually very easy to see. So just look out for that one. He can be hiding in some bushes. But that is going to do it for the locations of every single starter and how you're going to be able to unlock them. It is kind of a grind to unlock them, but once you do, you can go ahead and hunt every single shiny. They make up 80 slots in your Pokédex, so you're definitely going to need to go ahead and complete that. So it's going to be a little bit of a grind. But if you did find this helpful, go ahead, drop it a like down below. Go ahead, comment which starter is your favorite. And if you've seen more than one video of mine for this game, go ahead and think about subscribing, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.